This is the Minecraft Creator Podcast. We all struggle to get videos finished and released at the level of quality that we want. In today's episode, we're looking at 5 ways you can improve your workflow and edit faster. I am your host, LeigerGaming, and the goal behind this podcast is to help as many creators as possible to grow their channel successfully. Let me know what you would like to see covered in a future episode. You can also subscribe to the podcast in your app of choice on Android or iPhone or another platform so you don't miss any of the value-packed episodes that are coming up, released at 12 PM GMT every second Friday. I would like to thank Ancients World and Clocks for their support at the Netherite tier on Patreon. The support of my patrons really makes this podcast possible and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's get started. So what are the 5 ways that you can improve your workflow and edit faster? The first one is to pre-plan what you're going to do. For a Let's Play video, this means rather than aimlessly hopping into a survival world or server and building something, recording everything you can and then making a video out of that later, stop. Decide what you're doing in that episode first, then hop into the world and record exactly what you need for that episode. That may come in the form of deciding what you're going to build that day, what your end result is, what your end goal is for that video. Sure, there's room for spontaneity and surprises, but that's not an excuse to go into a game with no plan or direction at all, especially if you're a content creator. I mean, if you're playing for fun, the story's a bit different. The result is quite often that a video that lacks any planning or direction, when you're recording, leads to the actual video itself on YouTube also lacking planning and direction, and viewers won't be engaged. For a tutorial, you want to make sure that you have a firm grasp of the topic ahead of time. Decide what you're going to say and how you're going to present it, and in what order before you record. I'm not saying that you need to script what you say word for word or even pre-script at all. Work with your own personality. Sometimes scripting works for some, not for others. Go with what's best for you, but at the very least, think about the content is going to be that you're going to record before you record it. The benefit of doing this in each case, whether it's a Let's Play or a tutorial or something else, is that 1, you have less footage to edit, saving you time, and 2, the video flows much better, so you save your viewers time as well. Planning ahead is very important. If you're listening to this podcast now, hopefully you're benefiting from the fact that I planned ahead this conversation right now. Moving on to the second way that you can improve your workflow with video editing and editing Minecraft videos faster is something that's quite straightforward, but you might not have had it occur to you before. And that is simply to use the same video editor for an extended period of time. If you're constantly seeking the best video editor you can, you're testing features and experimenting, every single time you do that, you're interrupting your workflow. Even if you know for a fact that your current video editor is not the best one for the job, strongly consider sticking with it, at least for now. Especially if it's something that you've been using for the past 6 months or more. The reason is that even without trying, you've already developed habits and processes that optimize your workflow. By using the same tool, the same editor, for an extended period of time, you are naturally a lot faster at it than when you first used the editor. You're a professional at that editor now. If you do want to experiment with a new video editor, do it on the side. Use it for secondary videos. Make sure that your main, most important and most ambitious videos use the video editor that you are already comfortable with. That way you can get videos out on time, easily, and use any spare time to learn a second editor. And then when you're comfortable with using that one efficiently as well, at that point, you'll know it's time to switch. The third technique for editing faster and being more efficient at creating your videos for a Minecraft channel or any other YouTube channel is similar to the last one, and that is to learn keyboard shortcuts. Put them on a sticky note on your computer monitor, or write them in a notebook so you can easily access the keyboard shortcuts when you need them. The goal should be to train yourself to remember those shortcuts so you no longer even need those points of reference. We spoke about editors just earlier. If you have a video editor for a while, and you're clicking buttons in interface and you're just clicking on things in menus, you're likely doing things the slow way. Most professional video editing tools have keyboard shortcuts for common actions like cutting clips, adding and removing transitions, triggering a new recording and more. If you learn those keyboard shortcuts, you'll cut down on your editing time significantly. Expanding that further, have you also considered using keyboard shortcuts in-game? The game Minecraft has some very useful shortcuts for inventory management, for example, like moving entire stacks or even multiple stacks at once between your inventory and the container interface. Learn those and you'll save precious minutes every time you interact with a container. It all adds up. When you consider using client mods as well, especially for the Java version of the game where that's a bit more approachable, this becomes even more important. If you become familiar with the keyboard shortcuts for map mods, schematic placement and other such things, every time you go hunting for a button in an interface it's wasted time, so learning those keyboard shortcuts will save you time. And it's also important to know that you're not just wasting your time, but your viewers as well. To create a seamless video, you don't want to be hunting around in menus. Even if you go to the effort of cutting that out in the editing stage, you're wasting your time there. It's better just not do the menu hunting in the first place and press keyboard shortcuts. Recently, I bought the Steam Deck from Elgato. It's an interesting little piece of hardware that's really amazing and useful. It connects to your computer and has customizable buttons. You can adjust what's displayed based on the current running app. So in the last week alone, I've sped up my editing by having certain buttons for my editor being open, and gameplay by having certain buttons that I use within Minecraft as well. And of course, the Stream Deck was made for live streaming, so it's very useful for that and integrates heavily into both OBS Studio and Streamlabs OBS. I'll put a link to the Stream Deck that I'm using in the show notes for you. Now, tip number 4 for increasing your editing speed and improving your workflows to use B-roll. Yeah, it's actually possible to use B-roll for gaming videos as well. Usually when you see people talking about B-roll, they're actually filming real life footage of wildlife or a person sipping coffee in a cafe. This isn't what I'm referring to here. According to Wikipedia, in film and television production, B-roll is supplemental or alternative footage intercut with a main shot. So it does apply in gaming, but you would have gaming footage. It's anything that's not directly related to your main focus at that part of the video. But how does B-roll speed up your workflow? To make a good video, you want to make sure that you're displaying engaging and interesting footage that relates to what you're speaking about. But the footage you have isn't always engaging and interesting, or it might be poor quality, or it may be game footage that's in the first person view when what you're trying to present works better in another perspective. Instead, throw some B-roll footage into that part of the video and you're done. But instead of recording all that B-roll each time, which would actually slow down your process, what I'm referring to here is dedicated B-roll recording sessions where you pre-record footage without a full understanding of what you're going to actually use it for in the future. Generic stuff of you being in-game, doing stuff on certain servers or single-player worlds. This is stuff that you can use again and again in multiple videos. My recent ultra hardcore video, for example, started with an image that I had generated more than 12 months earlier for another video. You don't need to create new footage every video. Reuse existing footage and it will save you time. In this case, it wasn't perfect. The image that I used for the first few seconds of that video only included scouts from before any of us newer members had joined the server. But instead of re-rendering and creating a new image, I just used that one. It was outdated, but it served a purpose. And that brings me to the 5th way that you can optimize your workflow and edit faster. Know when it's good enough. I struggle constantly to make the content that I have as good as I can, but there comes a point where you just need to stop and release the video. I know, as a perfectionist, that's really hard to do sometimes. But if you want to edit efficiently and actually release videos regularly, it's an important skill to learn. And if you can't get a certain concept to work, be prepared to throw it all away and start over with a simpler way of doing the same video or a different video entirely. That may actually take less time than pursuing a really difficult concept and just pushing against it and trying to get it done, that you don't have the skills or the ability to pull off at the moment. I've had to cancel many videos in the past, some which I put a lot of effort into, over 10 hours of work in some cases. But simply moving on to the next video instead rather than getting bogged down in that one was the right decision for me at that time. I'm LeigerGaming. You can find the link to my channel in the show notes for this episode, and I hope you found it useful and interesting. I'll see you next time.